I'm Greg Cutter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a former CIA officer, top officer with top clearances. He, at one point in his career, had a high enough clearance to protect the CIA director. I mean, you can't protect him across the room. You've got to be standing on top of him many times and hear what he is saying. That's how high the clearance is. He also wrote this book. I'm giving it away. Spoiler alert. Kevin Shipp from the company of Shadows. Very relevant book. Still today, came out about 7 years ago, but it's still on sale. Very great information. Kevin Shipp, of course, I'm bringing on right now, the former CIA officer, whistleblower, expert in counterintelligence. I'm just kind of glossing over your resume. Kevin Shipp, thanks for joining us today to try to make some sense about what's going on.
Greg, it's good to be with you as always.
Let's start right here. In the pre-interview, we were talking about how big this is. How big is this, as the president says, attempted coup, attempted takedown of a duly elected president? That's what the president says, Donald Trump. I heard him say it this past week. How big is this?
Well, we all know that Donald Trump knows what's going on before he comes out in public and says it. Yes, this is a coup. This is the most shocking violation of the Constitution and criminal activity in the history, not just of America, but of a Western government. Much of this rises to the level of treason. People need to understand how shocking this is. It was a clear conspiracy. There will be some indictments, I think, without question. When in reality, the collusion was on the other side, the information in this so-called dossier came from Russian intelligence, the information they tried to use against Trump. This was a coup. It was a conspiracy. It was criminal activity, several violations of Title 18 U.S. Code. These people need to be indicted. They need to be charged, and they need to be put in prison. And if they're not, then our Constitution is nothing more than a sham, because this was a coup against a duly elected president. People need to understand how serious this is.
Well, you take a look back on it. I had you in the pre-interview. I said, this involved the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, the NSA, the Director of National Intelligence and all the agencies he's running, the State Department. It involved, the United Nations with powers and the unmasking of all the names. It involved foreign spy agencies. It involved Five Eyes. It involves the Bureau of Land Management, does it not? That's what this whole Bundy thing was. I mean, they showed up with guys with body armor and attack dogs over a grazing dispute.
Yeah, a grazing dispute that was a government land grab in connections with China. And good old Harry Reid, and I think Dirty Harry is an accurate name for him, was part of that whole debacle to enable China to buy that land and kick the Bundys off of it. That's what's behind that entire thing. And the response to the Bundys, I think you nailed that, Greg. It was a Gestapo response to a bunch of honest, patriotic ranch hands. They sent out the full force, fully armed force of the federal government. It was disgusting.
So the president is in front of the NRA, and he is getting us out of this whatever. That's not really a treaty. This deal with the United Nations that they were going to basically control our ownership of guns. So the president is basically signed it at the speech of the the NRA this past week. What's the idea with the president being so pro-gun? Is it because he knows that the stuff's going to hit the fan and he wants his peeps fully armed?
Well, there's two things there going on, Greg. If you remember going back to the reason that they wrote the Declaration of Independence, one is they were being taxed for things they had no say in. Hey, does that sound familiar now? We're paying for foreign wars and secret ops we know nothing about.
So that was aliens.
And illegal aliens. So that was one of the reasons for the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and then the Revolutionary War. But the other one was the colonists did not like Britain telling them what to do with their guns. Basically, that was the first gun control, where the Brits were trying to limit the right of guns to the colonists. So it is a fundamental constitutional right without question. Now, when you've got an armed populace, as the founders wrote several times, that keeps a tyrannical government in check. And a good example of that is some of the countries that Nazi Germany did not invade because their citizens were all armed. There is no doubt about the fact that the Second Amendment is a direct protection against government tyranny.
And the government, and that we're talking that we have, you think, well, the Trump's in charge. I mean, so why would he want all of his peeps armed? I mean, do we really have a covert civil war going on right now?
We have a not so covert civil war going on right now that has been brewing for over 60 years. We have, you want to call it the dark left. The DNC is fully involved, and other congressmen and senators. There is a Marxist movement within the DNC that is in control right now. If you go back and you match up the progressive goals with Marxist documents, you'll see that they are one and the same. They are, and I call it an attack on C3 in this country, because they have to destroy these things if they want to eliminate U.S. sovereignty, which is what they're trying to do. They have to change and eliminate the Constitution. Progressivism states they want the Constitution to be changed to a living document and change the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, first of all. And second of all, they despise and are targeting Christianity, because in their minds, Christianity, as it is, underlines the Constitution and, of course, is mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. So that's their second target they have to destroy. And their third target is the founding principles of America. That's our culture. They have to destroy that to bring all this disgusting, perverted behavior and every twisted victim group that is now the DNC. They have to destroy those three things if they're going to overturn our Constitution and turn this into a global Marxist government. And that is not an understatement.
Oh, man. And you think armed citizens and Trump realizes this?
Absolutely. There's no
you
question
think
about
armed
it.
citizens is a key component to thwart them?
I do. And that includes citizens in the military. There's a lot of patriots in the military. Our military strength is so much that an armed resistance would be very difficult if the military was on the side of a tyrannical government. The problem with that is the military is full of patriots. So the chances of that happening probably are not as good as some people think.
So this whole deal with, I got to tell you, Brennan's out again. Dave Janet thinks he's number one on the hit parade indictment list. And he's out, and he says, let me get the quote here, says that Donald Trump is a sociopathic ramblings. And to think that the CIA tried to have a coup on the president. Who's making the crazy time ramblings? The president or the guy about ready to be indicted, John Brennan?
Well, what's that old saying? Methinks you protest too much. John Brennan is saying these crazy things because I think he knows he is going to be indicted for this coup against an incumbent or a candidate and then elected president. He was the one that took the dossier. He's the one that disseminated. He's the one that leaked it to the press, calling it intelligence, falsifying intelligence. Those are felonies. He's the one that broke into the Senate on Capitol Hill and to his bosses, the Select Committee, to spy on the torture report. This man has committed several felonies, and he knows darn well he has. So he's coming out screaming and yelling like a mockingbird to the press, trying to cover before this whole thing comes apart at the seams.
Is that why Hillary is out to say he would have been indicted if he wasn't the? I mean, what's up with this crazy thought shaping? Is this all they got? Is this an act of desperation? What's the meaning behind Brennan and Hillary and even Biden and all these people coming out with this crazy time lies? What's the meaning? What are they trying to accomplish? What's the meaning of it?
This is all they have. And now they've been engaged along with the willing media, MSNBC, who is receiving information from Brennan, and CNN, which is receiving information from Clapper. That is the CIA and the intelligence feeding information to CNN and MSNBC. That should make the hair stand up on people's necks right there. But they have nothing. If they had evidence that none of this was true against them, they'd be coming out with it, but they're not. Instead, they're saying, I know you are, but what am I? They're making accusations that are completely baseless because they know darn well they're in serious trouble.
Are they panicked?
They're panicked. You can count on it.
They're panicked.
Yeah, this rises to the level of treason.
And they know full well. This is why they're saying all this crazy thing.
Oh, absolutely.
This is all they got.
Yep.
The media. The media, I've talked about this, and I want to talk to you about it. And this came out in conversations with Strzok and Page. These weren't too low-level, people, getting it on in the back of their 1999 Skylark. This is the number 2 counterintelligence FBI agent and a lawyer for the number 2 at the FBI, Andrew McCabe. And we were conversing, and a lot of media hasn't picked this up. But they had a name for it. They called it the media leak strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Is the media involved in sedition and treason? At least some of the media at the highest levels, because the reporters don't run the show, the managers do. Is the media, could they be taken down in seditious and treasonous charges to help propel this lie for 2 years?
Well, I think the media is going to be taken down by the people when the people realize that what they have done is sedition without question. And as I mentioned earlier, they were taking information from the CIA and parroting that false propaganda to the American people when they knew darn well what they were doing. Mueller knew there was no collusion within just the first several months of his investigation, but he continued anyway, and they continued to leak to the press. And the press, CNN, MSNBC, and I mentioned them because they have gone beyond the pale. It is sedition. They were suborning sedition. They were assisting this soft coup or hard coup, more of a hard coup in my opinion. They were assisting it by parroting the propaganda that they knew was false, and they were giving, and they need to be held accountable. I understand that they're losing viewers in droves. I understand that just as of today, that advertisers are thinking of switching over to other conservative channels, and they better, because that's where a lot of the people are going, because the media sadly has stepped all over it and been a part of this entire coup against the government, and they're going to pay for it.
Could they actually have charges against them? I mean, they were going out to reporters. They were leaking this bogus Trump dossier, is what they call it, with all these lies in it. And they were leaking it, and then they went to the FISA court and said, "Here's the dossier. And, oh, here's some news reports about the dossier that they leaked to these people. They must have known. They can't be that stupid." So
No,
do you think they could have charges put against them?
Well, it's very, very difficult to charge a journalist or a member of the press because of press protections. I don't think there's going to be charges against the board or the CEOs of CNN and MSNBC. It's too difficult, and it may not be a bad thing to charge members of the press. So, no, I don't think they'll be charged, but I think they're going to take a huge advertising and financial hit over this.
No? Well, they're already. I mean, CNN is, I don't have a single show in the top 10. I think they've down to 15th or 15th place or something. I mean, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, all these people. I mean, this isn't just, like I would occasionally, as an investigative reporter, somebody would make a mistake, or I would make a mistake, and I'd have to go on and say, wow, I made a mistake. But I wouldn't make a mistake for 2.5 years.
Yeah. Multiple times with multiple talking heads and multiple anchors and multiple journalists. No, that's no mistake. No way. And people are not going to be fooled by that. And not only that, the press is coming out, the media is coming out and saying they didn't make a mistake. They're trying to cover for themselves, saying that in their view, they reported accurately. So they're already trying to cover their pancake maker for what they know darn well was false propaganda.
What are they going to do when the arrests start? Because you think there are going to be arrests and indictments.
Yes, I do. I think there's going to be indictments and then charges, and from there regarding the arrest, that's going to be up to the DOJ. But I am convinced that Greg, there has to be indictments if we're going to maintain our Constitution. There has to be indictments here, and there has to be charges. There is if there are not, we're done. It's over. And people need to understand that if there are not indictments, if there are not charges, it's over. Our constitutional government is over. Our justice system is over. That's how critical this is. This rises to the level of treason. It is a coup. It happened. All the evidence is there. And these people, they've got to be charged. They've got to be indicted. And in my opinion, a few of them need to be put in prison for a few decades.
I mean, I think the death penalty should be in play.
Yeah, and that's up to the DOJ, but that's what treason brings the level of punishment up to, and that is probably the reason that some of these people are terrified and coming out and blasting Trump any way they can. It's a last gasp before they go down. They know how serious this is. They know how serious what they have done is. And we are going to see fireworks that we have never seen in this country over the next year as these things start happening. And what they're going to do, including the DNC, including CNN, MSNBC, and a couple of others, is they're going to ratchet up their attacks on Trump, on conservatives, on Christians and Jewish sectors of our population. They're going to ratchet all that up and try to strengthen the Muslim populations to try their best to shut down what could be perhaps the financial end of CNN and what could be the destruction of the Democratic Party. It's not the same party of John F. Kennedy. It's now a Marxist party. It's an umbrella for every victim, twisted, perverted group that has nowhere else to go. It is no longer the Democratic Party. This is a mortal blow to the Democratic Party when these things come out.
What I want to get into this because you have people committing treasonous acts, sedition, obstruction of justice, fraud, felony, one fraud felony after another. Why the full court press to destroy Donald Trump? It wasn't just because we don't like your politics. No, it's got to be more than that. Were they afraid of what would be uncovered, and afraid that their crimes, ranging from treason to common fraud and ripoff and just financial frauds, were they afraid of that? Is that what what's the motivation for this widespread of a takedown that involved other countries and other spy agencies and every agency under the Obama administration? What's the motivation?
Greg, that amounts to a global conspiracy with MI6, probably GCHQ, and maybe even the Australian ASIO organizations, along with our NSA, FBI, and CIA. I mean, there's never been anything like this. It is huge. It is massive. They're coming out and they're saying, well, we hate Donald Trump because he played around and he was with a prostitute and he has no morals and he has no ethics. That's not it. All they have to do is look in the mirror and see the same thing. If I went back to my past in college, I'd be embarrassed about it. That's not what it is. And I can tell you as a CIA officer, since JFK, this is the first time a president has confronted what I call the shadow government, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, and the deep state, which is connected to it. First time. And he's exposing them. They're exposed right now. This never would have come out. This system has been there before I came out and started humbly talking about it in 2012. It's been there for almost 60 years. And Donald Trump has shaken it up so much that it is now desperate, and it's right out there in public. People never used to talk about the deep state. They were embarrassed. All the talk show hosts never touched it. Only a couple of us were. And now it's a popular term because they can't ignore it. It's right out there in front of everybody's face. And this 63 million plus voters that voted for Trump, I think they're terrified because that has amplified. People have seen what they've done. They've seen what the media has done. They've seen what the DNC, and I'm an independent, I'm not a Republican. They've seen what the DNC has done. And I can tell you that the numbers for Trump have increased dramatically.
So you think the motivation behind this is they were going to take over the world and they were going to plunder it for themselves, and the fly in the ointment is Donald Trump? I mean, he's out and he said this. I got this. I heard him say this. I am draining the swamp. This was on 4/25/19. This was last Thursday. I'm draining the swamp. And there's a reason why he's saying this, and you're saying it's because they're freaking out because they're going to destroy their new world order, their deep state, their crime, their fraud, the world they want us to live in ain't the world they want to live in, right? I mean, so so the motivation is that they want to get away from being caught in this scam.
Well, yeah, and I think Trump is being too kind. I don't think it's a swamp. I think it's a sewer. But this is all basically coming from globalism and a globalist. I call Hillary Clinton the globalist princess. This is all global. She received $27.1 million from George Soros, I think, and I'm just estimating here. I've done a speech on this. Soros gave Barack Obama, I think it was $32 million to get him elected president. George Soros is a globalist. George Soros wants to destroy U.S. sovereignty. George Soros wants to see a global government. And Hillary Clinton and the rest of them are going right along with him. That is a Marxist view. That is a Marxist goal. And you're doggone right. Here comes Donald Trump, the independent, uncontrollable man that is for U.S. sovereignty, is for the Constitution, is for the founding principles of America, and he has rattled their cage.
Could we get into a shooting civil war?
I'll tell you. If they were to...
Hold on. I want to say this. And I listened to the whole NRA speech. And I'm thinking, that's a rallying cry. He's signing off on the arms, UN arms. It wasn't a treaty. It was an agreement to take away our guns. He's like, I'm going to sign this right here. We're done. Boom. Gone. So I mean, there's a reason why he's doing this. He didn't just doing this off the top of his head.
Oh yeah. So, and as I said, Trump has known about these things a lot longer than we have, and he's coming out and he's just saying little words that represent the volume of things that he knows. Will there be an armed insurrection in the United States? Not as long as Trump is in office, but if we get a globalist in there after Trump, and if the government gets back to spying, well, they're still spying on us, the NSA is, but if the government starts to amplify what it did again after 9/11, I think after seeing this and after seeing this treason and after knowing what the shadow government and the deep state really is, that it exists, it has been doing this, it is doing it now. I think people, I talk to patriots all the time after my speeches. People are done. They're fed up, and there's millions of them. And if they come in and they try to change the Constitution, that's a flashpoint. And I think then Americans are going to break out and perhaps at least be prepared to exercise their Second Amendment right. And Greg, you have to remember too, this is something no one ever talks about. The Declaration of Independence mandates that Americans have an obligation to overthrow their government if it becomes tyrannical. Now, if that was processed through the government, it would be all blacked out. But that's what it says. That's what the colonists did, and that's what we've gone full circle back to being taxed for things we know nothing about, back to gun control, back to everything that caused the Declaration of Independence to be written. We're back. It's almost like, Greg, we're back to the beginning. So if the government after Trump goes that bad, yes, I think you'll see that happen. And I also think you'll see the military start to break down with insurrections of military people that are patriots that don't want to be a part of anything that oppresses the American people.
Well, that's why Trump has made it so far.
Yeah.
I'm told that General Michael Flynn, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who was the Defense Intelligence Agency chief, and that's the reason why they took him out first in this coup, this failed coup, and this is the president now saying this.
Yeah.
And so this is, and I think he's absolutely correct. The evidence says it was a coup, a hoax.
Yes.
It made up. They made it up.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this was not just this was propaganda, certainly from CNN, but in terms of these high-level government officials in the CIA, in the FBI, in the NSA, these powerful organizations that function many times completely outside of the Constitution. This was not just some kind of political thing to try to get Trump out of office. This was criminal activity. This was a coup, and now is still a coup against a sitting, duly elected president of the United States by the opposing party and high-level officials in the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI. This is serious. This is criminal. And as I mentioned, this is a violation of multiple Title 18 USC violations. Those are felonies, some punishable by 20, 30 years in jail, some by execution. That is how serious this thing is, and it's going to play out in the next year, and it is going to be a bombshell. It is going to be fireworks, and you can bet that the people that know that they're coming for them are going to get meaner and nastier, and it is going to get ugly.
Well, what about Giuliani coming out last week on Fox and Friends, which I couldn't believe. A, I couldn't believe he said it, and B, I couldn't believe it was ignored by much of the mainstream media. He said the Clintons were the, quote, America's #1 crime family. What's up with that? What's the signaling? What are they signaling?
Well, I think Rudy has finally got it. The information and the evidence is out there clearly that it's a Clinton crime syndicate, and the Clinton Foundation is one of the biggest criminal charity frauds in the history of the world. That's a whole other charge. And I want to mention real quickly that Robert Mueller was investigating the Clinton Foundation, and so was James Comey, and they dropped the investigation when there's global international crime, and it's an international crime syndicate. And I'm not speaking lightly about that. I'd recommend folks go to Charles Ortel and his exposés. He's a financial expert on the Clinton criminal syndicate and foundation, multiple felonies. There's no doubt about that. And Giuliani's got it exactly right. Now, Giuliani and people don't come out and say these things off the top of their heads. They know full well the details. They come out and they make short statements that represent a volume of information.
And you think, are they signaling that the Clintons, and this includes Chelsea, who ran the global charity fraud.
Yeah.
I mean, she's almost 40.
Yeah.
This includes, I mean, she's not, people think, oh, Chelsea Clinton, she's 14 or she's 10. No.
She's a witting adult of everything that's gone on, a participant. I think what is she making? Millions, several a year doing that. That makes her an accomplice without question. And that is a signal, I think, that the Clintons are in a whole lot of trouble, not just because of the Clinton crime syndicate, AK or foundation, as they call it, but also because of the violations Hillary Clinton, including espionage and the felonies that she's committed.
John Solomon over at the Hill breaking a huge story about the Ukraine. There was collusion. It involved the Obama White House. It involved President Obama trying to fix it against Paul Manafort, trying to fix it for Hillary Clinton, trying to cover for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me about this. Is an unbelievable breaking story by the Hill and John Solomon that they're laying out the Ukrainian i.e. / Russian collusion that helped that wanted to go against not help Donald Trump, go against Trump and help Hillary Clinton, and also cover alleged crime by Hunter Biden.
Yeah. Well, John Solomon nails it again, as he often does. These were this goes all the way to the White House, by the way, and that's eventually where it's going to lead as long as Trump is in office. The Obama administration knew that Paul Manafort was about to join Trump's campaign, and they had put pressure on the Ukrainian officials. The FBI had done an investigation on Manafort before and completely dropped the investigation and didn't charge him. But what the Obama administration was interested in is getting that information, getting it out and leaking it to the press, although the investigation had been dropped. And we also have to mention here that John Podesta was doing the same thing, unreported foreign activity, the same thing Manafort was, and nothing was done to him for obvious reasons, because the target was Paul Manafort and the target was the Trump campaign from the Obama administration, without a doubt. And so here we got good old Joe Biden. Now, amongst his other issues, this one is huge. Biden's, especially his son, sat on the board of directors for the Ukrainian company Burisma Holdings. It was an energy company, and it was under investigation at that time for improper foreign transfers of money. Hello. And they also paid Vice President. This is how a lot of corrupt senators in Congress do it. They don't engage in these felonious activities because obviously they get in a lot of trouble, but their family can. And so they let their family do it and they reap the benefits. That's what Joe Biden did. His son Hunter made more than $3 million in 2014 and 15 as a board member and a consultant for Burisma Holdings while it was being investigated for improper foreign transfers of money. And it was the Ukrainian government that had this information that Manafort had been investigated for his connections and leaked it for the very purpose of trying to harm the Trump campaign. So the attack against Donald Trump started way back then in 2014 and 2015. And Joe Biden essentially was an accomplice to his son that was part of this Ukrainian foreign money that was going back and forth. And it was Joe Biden that put pressure on the president of Ukraine to fire the Ukrainian chief prosecutor.
Obstruction of justice.
Yes, who was about to file all of this. Biden put pressure on the president of Ukraine to drop this case, and it was shut down.
Does that mean that? So what's up with this? So Biden's up to his neck in some pretty tawdry stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then we have this with him saying, so he's asking Obama, don't endorse me. What? Wait a minute. Stop. Are you the darling of the Democrat Party, first black president ever? You don't want his endorsement? Yeah. What's going on with that, Kevin Shipp?
Well, I think they think the American people are stupid. I do know that they know that if they repeat something enough to the people that sit on their couch and watch CNN, they'll start to believe it. That's why they keep saying these things that are so stupid. And Joe Biden is parroting these things. He has got, as I mentioned, a lot of skeletons in his closet. They've got problems.
But why is he telling the president, don't endorse me? Why would you say that?
Well, this is just my humble opinion. I think the president knows these indictments and these charges are coming.
For Biden.
He also knows that these things lead directly to him. He's probably not going to. He may endorse one of the Muslim Brotherhood connected ones, one of the Congress people. But I think Obama knows that this thing is a brewing storm that's about to explode. He's not going to endorse. Now, remember, Biden knows a lot about what Obama did. Because he was vice president, some of it, not all of it. Vice presidents a lot of times are kept in the dark. But I think Obama is not endorsing him because he knows that this storm is coming.
But he's not endorsing you. You think so? Biden's saying, I asked the president not to endorse him, knowing full well Obama wouldn't endorse him anyway.
Yeah, no, Obama wouldn't endorse him anyway. And Biden is fibbing when he's saying that he asked Obama, a popular two-term president with all of the entire left, he's asking him not to endorse him. I'm sorry, but that's laughable.
Because Obama's not going to endorse him.
No, not Obama's not going to endorse him.
You,
So he covered that by saying he asked him not to do it.
you think this leads all the way to Obama?
Yes, absolutely, without question.
Do you think he's going to go down for it?
As long as Trump is in office, there's a possibility. Yes. But
Wow.
if once Trump is out of office, we got real problems. But as long as Trump is in office and with his second term, yes, I think it can lead to Barack Obama, who I think is a subversive president. I've given speeches on that. There's evidence out there. So yes, I think it will lead to him.
What can the deep state do to upset the apple cart? Could they have a financial depression, a financial plunge in the markets and all that? I mean, they're all going to lose big money. They won't be bailed out under Trump.
Yeah,
So,
they got to wag the dog. They're going to have to wag the dog.
so what could the deep state do? What do you suppose they're going to try to do? They're getting zeroed in on. I mean, and not just Obama. Jan has told me that the plan, and he's put this out there, that they're going to go after the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Pacers. They're going to go after the top money people, not just the Soroses. He's kind of an Arab boy, according to Janda, and
Yeah.
not really that high of a player relative to the Rothschilds and the Pacers and the Rockefellers. So
Yeah.
tell me, what could they do to try to destroy the Trump president and stop him from being reelected?
I think Dave is right, and we know that Hillary Clinton is a very close friend of Lady Rothschild, who came out and gave a scathing after then she deleted, but came out with a scathing Twitter message about John Podesta, accusing Podesta of ruining Hillary's chances of becoming president. That was Lady Rothschild. So there's an overt evidence of that connection right there. So yes, I think it is heading in that direction. I think there's going to be some public scrutiny of their connections and their funding, especially of this mysterious money, for example, that went to Barack Obama, the candidate. So I think it will lead to them. Yes. Now, what is the deep state going to do? They're going to wag the dog. They're going to continue to press for the precipice of World War III with Russia. They don't care about China, who's far worse of an enemy than Russia, but they're going to keep pressing with Russia and pushing Putin to do things that they can accuse him of, threatening a third world war. Now, what the shadow government does is to keep themselves in power. What do? They either start or they push wars. That's what they do. Keeps them paid, keeps them in power. The same with what many call the military-industrial complex. That's what keeps them in the millions. That's what keeps them in business. That has always been what's kept the CIA in business, is pushing wars and coups. That's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to push us to the precipice of the war, of a war with Putin, and push him into doing things and then make it look like he's an international aggressor. You can count on that. And secondly, watch the economy. The economy is booming so well that it's a death knell for any Democratic presidential candidate. So they're going to have to somehow go after the economy, and we'll have to watch how that happens. We got to keep our eye on the Federal Reserve. We got to keep our eye on Wall Street and other things, and see if there's any manipulation of the economy, currency, or interest rates that attempt to drive down the prosperity that we're experiencing right now under the Trump administration.
We have all this debt. I mean, that's the big Achilles heel, all the debt.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the secret money, the missing money, the 21 trillion,
Yeah.
Which I think probably Trump got into office and said, they did what? Oh, God.
Yeah, well, you know what they did? Just a quick side. You know what they did with that missing 21?
Oh, tell me.
Well, they under James Clapper, they decided that it was sensitive, and they moved it under the national security budget and classified it secret.
That's right.
So no one will ever know.
Yeah, FASAB 56, Rule 50. Yeah.
No one will ever know. That's what I call the tyranny of secrecy. We will never know what they spent that $21 trillion on, because they've moved it under secrecy.
Which puts Trump in a kind of a tough position, because he's trying to get us energy independent, check. Trying to get a bunch of judges installed that aren't lefty Marxists. He's trying to bring back all this capital. He's trying to cut the regulation. He's trying to build a wall. He just got us out of this gun deal from the UN, where they wanted to take our guns under the guise of the UN, Paris Climate Accord, the fraudulent Iranian deal. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. Where they didn't sign anything and everybody took a bribe, according to the Iranians. The Trans-Pacific Partnership. Oh, the Paris Climate Accord, another fraud fest. He's got his work cut out for him, right? Anybody that is so. Given Donald Trump's track record, what I hear all the time, oh, he's a puppet of the globalists. He's a puppet of the Rothschilds. He's a puppet of the New World Order. That doesn't make sense to me.
I get the same thing, and there's people from.
What do you say to
Sachs.
people?
Well, there's people from Goldman Sachs that are close to the president, and those are the things that they use. But no. Look at who Donald Trump is confronting, and as it's always said, you'll know a man or a woman by his or her enemies. Look at his enemies. Now, if he was a globalist, he'd be Hillary Clinton's best buddy. But they're blood enemies. He and Clinton and Soros and the rest of them. They're all attacking him. They're attacking him because he is exposing them. He's exposing the globalists. But give him a break. The size and the magnitude of the shadow government and the deep state, the swamp, the sewer, whatever you want to call it, the size, the magnitude, and the power of that is complex and immense. As a matter of fact, a study came out and said that not even Congress knows the size and the extent of what they call the top secret government. I call the shadow government. Not even Congress knows the extent of it, nor does the president. He's surrounded by this huge, complex monster of the shadow government, deep state. So we need to cut him a little slack. This is one man that is literally fighting a monster.
Oh, fighting a monster. I love that. Because I tell people all the time, I say, this has probably been going on since the Kennedy administration, really since, Operation Paperclip. Or if you want to go back to 1913, or actually 1914,
yes,
when they actually got in. I mean, this is big, and you expect him to get rid of this in 2 years? Excuse me?
Yeah, exactly. Well put. That's exactly right.
I mean, he's done a lot. I mean, and I want to go, I'm circling back to this. You got a president of the United States signing off a UN wish list to get rid of guns here in America, and he's saying, "I'm going to sign this right here in front of you. We're done. Boom, gone. Boom. Here's my pen." Right. So he knows how bad this could get.
Yes. Yeah, he does.
And he wants his supporters armed. Am I wrong?
Trump is brilliant, and somebody said, and I think it's true. And when you think Trump has lost, he wins. The man is a brilliant strategist, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And knowing that the mainstream press is Marxist essentially and has left journalism, knowing that, he goes to the people directly through Twitter and through these statements that he makes at his conventions and his rallies. So people need to listen very carefully to what he says, because he means it. And when he disconnected the U.S. from Agenda 21, what he's doing is saying, keep your arms, bear your arms, support the Second Amendment. It is a right and it's necessary. Now, is he calling people to arms through that? I don't think so yet. But he
wants them to be ready.
He wants them to be ready. I think he is telling Americans, use your Second Amendment rights, arm yourselves as the founding fathers declared that we should, because this is a democracy. It's run by we the people, although that has reversed itself. And we the people need to defend themselves if after the Trump administration this thing goes really bad.
The Judicial Watch, I want to get into this. Judicial Watch, this is the headline I held up on the Weekly News Wrap-Up. The FBI admits Hillary Clinton emails found in Obama White House. Back to Obama. Also confirms over 4,800 Clinton server emails found on the Wiener laptop. When the indictments come, there's a couple of schools of thought here that they'll dribble out, or it might just be shock and awe. What do you think is going to happen when the indictments come? Are we going to get a bunch of them at one time, or a few dribbling out?
That is completely up to how William Barr now is going to handle them. Remember, if they all hit at once, it could cause a crisis in Washington, because they're going to be perp walking multiple high-level officials out of their positions. Now, some of us would love to see that. But then there's going to be kind of a constitutional vacuum in those positions. I think this is just my opinion, but I think Barr is going to do this kind of incrementally. He'll charge a couple, then he'll charge a couple more, then he'll charge a couple more, and he'll go that way over the next year. And my faith in William Barr so far is growing. It looks like he's going to do that, but I don't think they're going to hit him all at once. That would cause the government to be unstable. I think they're going to do it incrementally.
Trump was on Hannity. Listen to the whole interview. It was 40-something minutes long.
Yeah.
He said dropped a couple of little bombs. And, he said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to declassify the FISA stuff, and I'm going to declassify a bunch of stuff that you haven't heard about." What does he mean?
He's Greg. He's making my day, man.
What does he mean by that?
They've been using classification to cover up illegal activity. The CIA has, especially in the case of this coup. The FBI has, not just in this, but in other things that they've done criminally. They have used classification, redactions, blackouts, and withholding things from Congress for decades. There's some serious things that they have withheld using classification. Trump knows what those are. And he is going to demand that that classification is removed so the American people can see it. And I'm telling you, man, I'm going to be dancing on the top of my house if and when that happens.
When you say so they used the classification term, the idea of classified information to cover up crime. Is
Yes,
that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Explain.
Yes, there's no doubt about it.
So when he removes, for example, let's say the Kennedy stuff.
Yeah.
It's just one guy with a gun, right? Right? That's the story they told. One guy with a gun. Okay, so it's not a national security issue. I want to see the unredacted Warren Commission, and I want to see all the autopsy photos because, it's just one guy with a gun, right?
Yeah. And why would they hold those back? What was it, for 20 years, I guess, after the assassination? And then they make it look like, we finally released it all because Trump told us to. But what they refuse, or what they held back from the American people, is they have 1,300 documents blacked out that they will not release for people to see. Now, remember, that's 1,300 that they didn't destroy. Having been in there, the CIA will destroy, like they did the torture videotapes. They'll destroy a lot of things that'll never see the light of day. The Church Committee found that out. So there's 1,300 non-destroyed CIA documents that relate to the JFK assassination, which was not a lone gunman based solely on the evidence.
Do you think the autopsy photos exist still?
Yes, I do.
You do? Have you seen them?
I've seen copies of them. Yes, I haven't.
Stop making some news here. You've seen copies of the autopsy photos?
I have. No, I have not held them in my hand.
But you've seen them.
I've seen articles on the autopsies with photographs in those articles.
I mean, the back of his head's blown off, is it not?
Yes. And that's clear. And most experts, Cyril Wecht, if I'm pronouncing correctly, a very well-known pathologist, I spoke at a event with him, has come out and said there's no question about it that shot came from the front of his head and blew the back of his head off. That's what the original autopsy photograph showed, until Mockingbird, Dan Rather, came out and said he saw it and the shot came from the back. They didn't know the Zapruder film existed at that time, and then it turned out that Dan Rather was lying. The evidence shows the shot came from the front, blew the back of his head off. Experts, forensic people agree with that. The research that I have done, which has been relatively extensive, shows exactly the same thing. It's one of the biggest media cover-ups, amongst others, in our history. It was not a lone gunman. And I'm talking, as a former analyst, I'm talking evidence, not conjecture, not conspiracy theories, not articles off the internet. I'm talking evidence.
Supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald, which I believe Denver pulled the trigger at all. Supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald was behind him, not in front of him.
Lee Harvey Oswald was in the book. As a matter of fact, I did an interview right there at Dealey Plaza. Lee Harvey Oswald was behind him without a doubt. There's no question about that. And the shot came from the front. There's no doubt about that either. Just those two facts right there shows that the Warren Commission was a sham.
We had a change of government without an election, and then we got the Vietnam War.
Yep, and I did a show on the Bobby Kennedy assassination too, and bullet holes in the walls that were removed and burned, because obviously Bobby would have won and there would have been more investigation into JFK. That is not an understatement. I'd encourage people to look into that and look into how the LAPD, who's trained by the CIA, by the way, that is a fact, how the LAPD removed the doors behind Sirhan that had bullet holes in them and burned them.
So what do you think people should do with what's going on? What's the danger for we the people in all this? I mean, you say there's going to be a rough and wild summer. You got Donald Trump making sure all Americans are armed. And what's the danger for we the people?
The danger for we the people right now is the dark left and dark left violence. Because as these arrests, these indictments, first of all, begin to come out, and as the players are called out, the violence on, I call it the dark left, is going to increase to the point where it's going to be a very, very bad. There's going to be beatings. There's probably going to be shootings. There's probably going to be shootings at police. And the dark left, seeing this, knowing that this didn't work, I think there's going to be a lot of violence, if you want to call it the left. There's going to be a lot of violence coming from the left in the next year or two. Americans, this is one of the reasons that they need to exercise their Second Amendment right, which I do quite a bit actually, is because of what the left is going to do with these findings and the fact that this could be the death knell for what is now the Democratic Party, and certainly the death knell of this coup and the death knell of the dark left's attempt to take over our Constitution and culture. They're going to see that, and they're going to exponentially bring up their violence, and Americans need to arm themselves. They need to protect themselves against that.
I want to talk a little bit about the voter fraud. Obviously, listen, they want to flood the zone. They want as many illegals here as possible. They want them to bring disease. They want to bring terrorists. They want to, Donald Trump is ramping up building this wall. Supposedly 40 new miles have been built already. What can they swing this election with voter fraud, or is that jig up?
They will try voter fraud, but that jig is up because that, as I mentioned earlier, that 63 million people that voted for Trump, remember, nobody knew they were there, because they didn't have stickers, hats, or they weren't rallying or anything except when he came to town, and then it was standing room and lines only. But there is the number of voters that have been added as supporters of Trump is in the millions.
And you're talking not just independents, not just never Trumpers. You're talking Democrats. I've had Democrats. I've talked Democrats write me multiple, maybe a half a dozen times. Now, I don't have any research, but coming out and our family's been voting for Democrats for 50 years, and now we're not going to vote. What's happened to the Democrat Party is crazy. We're not voting for. I mean, Democrats are writing me on the site, on emails. Is that what your experience is when you're, as a CIA former top security clearance officer, are you seeing Democrats running from the Democrat Party?
Yes, they are. And as I mentioned, the support for Trump has been increasing by the millions. And as I mentioned also before, a lot of these millions and a lot of Democrats are just being very, very quiet right now because they know what will happen to them if they come out in support of Trump. But when election day comes, these millions are going to come out and they're going to push that button, pull that lever, and it's going to be more shocking than 2016.
Oh, wow. Do you think that they committed election fraud in 2018? I mean, Fox, which you should be ashamed of themselves.
They should.
Came out an hour and a half early and called the election, and then started talking about how the election wasn't going to, where they were going to win an hour and a half before that. According to a political consultant friend of mine, says, "Oh no, they did it for 3 hours." They acted like it wasn't good. They weren't calling it, and that it was bad. And then an hour and a half before, they finally called it and said it was, the Democrats weren't. Do you think they committed election fraud to get control of the House?
Well, I think the election fraud was committed. If you look at the state of Florida, where the supervisor of elections bust in fake votes, and now she's in a whole lot of trouble. That went on there in Florida. It went on in Texas. We know that happened. They're going to try to do that again.
Georgia?
Obviously.
Georgia?
Yes. Oh, yeah. In Georgia, too. Yes.
Arizona?
Yep.
Montana?
Yep.
California?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you think the only reason why that they got control of the House, and of course Paul Ryan left, 39 seats open, Republican seats, 90 days before the election because it was so important to them. But you think that they committed election fraud, and that the rhinos and the deep state on the Republican side helped them?
I do, and I think those rhinos need to be called out. I do, because there's no difference between them and the Democrats. They're basically one party. So yeah, there was election fraud. It did affect the election. And also remember, the propaganda that came out from the mainstream media affected the false stories affected the election. So there were several different things. And historically, typically when a conservative president is elected, people vote the other way for Congress and they vote liberal. That's been going on down through history. So I think you got several different things that happened in the last congressional election. But some of that definitely was voter fraud. We're doing an investigation looking deep into that right now. It's very complex, but we're hoping to come out with a report on that and a speech on that probably, I hope, in the next 2 or 3 months to expose where and what the voter fraud was, so people can keep their eye on it and begin doing investigations before 2020.
Is this why he got rid of his head of DHS? That she, in fact, not just because of the border, because she wasn't doing anything to thwart the voter fraud for 2020. Is this why she got rid of Kirsten?
Well, Greg, I don't know that. I don't have any information on that.
But you think there's a big push, or do you think there's a big push to counteract the voter fraud that's surely coming?
Yes, we have people working with us now telling us, look, keep digging, because there's a lot of people that want to kind of get behind this and help our effort. I can't mention names right now, but people would know who these people are. We're doing a deep investigation, and that's my part of this, into the voter fraud, so that we can document and detail it. So it is being addressed, it is being attacked, and I think we've got some fundraisers coming that'll help us get out and actually investigate these things in these states. I think Kentucky is coming up as a big one. So it's happening. There's an ongoing investigation into voter fraud, and we're hoping to get this thing wrapped up and out to the public within a few months. So yes, it will be exposed, and yes, it will be exposed before 2020.
And why don't they just come out and issue a warrant for treason and sedition to George Soros? Why won't that happen? Who in the hell does he think he is?
Yeah, well, from his own quotes, he described himself. He said since he was a child, he fancied himself as some kind of messiah. The guy's a narcissist to almost a psychopathic degree. That's George Soros. He wants to essentially rule the world with his billions. He's a globalist, and he wants the destruction of America to be part of this new global system. So Soros is a sick man, a very rich sick man, and everybody that wants his money snuggles up to him, and that includes Obama, Hillary Clinton, and others. But he's not the only one. He's connected into these rich banker families that have been colonialists and globalists. Remember that globalism was invented by Cecil Rhodes in South Africa, going way back when, and then translated into Great Britain. One of the reasons that our founders separated from Great Britain, it was a globalist empire, and Soros is part of trying to see that globalist empire come to pass. But he's got some people above him, some of the bankers. J.P. Morgan Chase was involved in that back in those days. You've got, and I think J.P. Morgan Chase's main headquarters in New York was just bought by the Chinese, by the way, but largest bank in the world. But the really wealthy families were also involved in globalism, because globalism was very financially profitable, and that's where the Rothschild connection comes in to Soros and others. So Soros is kind of a puppet of the Rothschilds, although he's kind of a sick billionaire, but they are all going for globalism. Globalism is beautiful for Wall Street and for bankers, and they make millions off these populations and these prospective customers. That's just the financial side, not to mention things like the UN Agenda 21 and controlling other countries, in this case, guns and the Second Amendment, but controlling all countries, special drawing rights, baskets of electronic currencies, and that's happening now, where countries go in and they draw from this global economy. So that's what these people want. And that's what they've been fighting for almost 60 years. And that's why they tried to stage this coup. And that's why this thing has reached this kind of level.
Are we going to have a debt reset? I mean, we're going to have a debt reset, right? But the question, I guess, is who's going to be at the top of the pyramid in America when we have a debt reset? I suspect we do much better with Donald Trump than somebody like Hillary Clinton.
I'll tell you who's going to be at the top of the heap during the debt reset, as people lose their 401ks and their financial and health lives are destroyed. Who's going to be at the top of that, just like the Great Depression, are going to be the bankers. It's going to be the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, is made up by foreign banks, and it's not federal, and it has no reserves. So those are the entities, just like the Great Depression, that are not just going to be on top of it when this reset happens. They're going to make money.
So do you think, what's Donald Trump going to do to try to make the best case for America? I mean, what's he going to try to do when this debt has to be taken care of? I mean,
the only thing I can see him able to do is, if he sticks to his guns, no pun intended,
yeah,
and keeps putting pressure on China. We're talking, when we get what China has ripped off from us and some others, we're talking trillions of dollars. When we get that money back, that's money that could be applied to the deficit and essentially save America from what is now a coming financial collapse.
Do you think it's coming?
Yes.
Is Donald Trump trying to put this off till after the 2020 election?
He's got so much to deal with now, just trying to keep himself in the White House, from this coup. He hasn't gotten to that fully yet. I think, just my opinion, he's waiting for his second term. He's got his hands full right now.
You think he can put it off?
I think he can put it off, but after he's out of office, I would recommend people start financially preparing.
After he's out of office, but
Yes.
Do you think? I mean, he wants to cut interest rates. He's obviously, the economy's going well, but he still wants to cut interest rates. He wants to have a quantitative eating. He and his people have said this, that they want quantitative. So he must know something's wrong.
That's surprising, and the fact that he would even think about quantitative easing is maybe a little shocking. But they know how serious that this is. In a couple of years, max, we're not even going to be able to afford the interest on the national debt. And that means that America is heading for insolvency. And it also means we know now that Russia and China are working to eliminate the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency. They are working to make the yuan take its place actively. They signed an agreement. If that happens and the U.S. dollar is no longer the world reserve currency, we're done financially.
Can he thwart that? Can he thwart that? Is there plans to thwart that? How would he do that? How can he do it? How is he going to do it?
He's going to have to put pressure on Russia and China. He's going to have to put pressure on other countries to keep the dollar as the reserve currency. I don't want to say it's impossible for Trump to do that. Mathematically, we're heading for a financial crisis, a financial collapse. It's inevitable. It can't be stopped. The stock market will crash. It's going to happen. The question is when. I think it's after Trump is out of office. Frankly,
wait. When you say after out of office, are you saying in 2020?
Second term, after his second term.
So you think he's going to get a second term?
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yes. I think Trump's going to be reelected in 2020, and I think it's going to be a stronger vote than it was in 2016 by far.
Wow. And this is from a top clearance CIA officer. You think that these these Democrats that are going to vote for Trump aren't going to announce this. They're just going to walk in and they're just going to go Trump, 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 Republican, Republican. You think that's what's going to happen?
Oh, yes, a lot of Democrats and also a lot of Republicans and a lot of independents. Right now, they don't want to get their car scraped with a key, or they don't want to get beat up, or they don't want somebody at their job to attack them. They don't want some of these credit card companies to remove their financing. So they're all being quiet right now. There are millions out there being quiet, just like in 2016. That's why it was such a shock. So when 2020 happens, all these people are going to come out by the millions more than 2016, and they're going to vote.
Well, you think that the Democrats taking over the House in 2018 was a terrible thing, but now you look back on it and you think, oh my God, they've let the genie out of the bottle. They're for killing babies. I mean, if I'd have told you, Kevin, hey man, I'm going to get 44 Democrat senators to vote for killing babies, you'd have said, oh come on, the Green New Deal. I mean, I heard Trump talking about this, so they can't be serious. I mean,
yeah, and let me tell you, Greg, the reason I'm laughing is because occasional cortex has come in, and Nancy Pelosi doesn't know what to do with her, and the whole Democratic Party is in an upheaval. Pelosi has lost control of her entire party because of these fanatics, and so they're kind of coming apart at the seams.
Independents have to be looking at this, going, "Is this crazy? Did we just walk into crazy town?"
Yeah, they did.
It's same thing with some of the Democrats that think that they're still a part of, like we talked about this, that they're part of the party of Kennedy, which was a pretty good president, incidentally.
Yeah, yes, I agree, 100%.
And but they're not part of the party of Kennedy. They're not even part of the party of I don't know, Carter.
They're not a party of the people anymore.
They're party of Marxism.
Yes, and Greg, how could anybody fathom killing an unborn child up to moments before birth and after birth?
Yeah, we just had our governor sign a bill. Well, we have laws against infanticide, so if that baby makes it out of the birth canal screaming and crying, it's okay. Roy Cooper, the Democrat governor of North Carolina, vetoed a bill that said it's okay to kill babies outside the womb if you're trying to abort them.
I just spoke in North Carolina 2 days ago, and they are incensed. This man has to be a monster to veto the heartbeat bill and allow millions of unborn children, the most innocent, to be killed all the way up to moments before they're born or after. This man is a monster. He needs to be called out for what he is. And I can tell you, the North Carolinians that I spoke to a couple days ago are outraged about this man, and they need to pull his britches out of that seat.
Oh man, he he had this fake phony bathroom bill where McCrory couldn't come out and say, hey y'all, they want men in the bathroom and showers with your little girls. Okay, if you'd like to have that, don't vote for me.
Yeah.
If you don't want that, vote for me. That's what I would have said.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Bruce Springsteen, Banjo Bruce. He's going to do a country album now. That weasel, Bruce Springsteen. Take your banjo, Bruce, and go away. And I'm going to boycott North Carolina because you don't like bathroom equality, you weasel. Why don't you stay in New Jersey? Why don't you stay out of our business? Why don't you just, be a minstrel and write some stupid songs and don't tell us how to live?
Yeah, and then Bruce, obviously, you're way too full of yourself. And the advice I give to Bruce was get yourself a bag of sand and a mallet, and you know what to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so in closing, I want to talk about your book because it's still for sale. Listen, you make your living off of speeches and donations, and this book. I mean, folks, this is a fantastic book from the Company of Shadows, Kevin Shipp. It's on fortheloveoffreedom.com. Is that right? .com? I get that right?
It's fortheloveoffreedom.net, and that includes all the documents that I've released. Yep.
Yes, fortheloveoffreedom.net, free site, totally free. You also take donations, and I'm going to hit this because I know you don't make much money. The CIA, your former employer, has attacked you viciously and tried to kill you and your family. And I don't mean to make light of that. That's not a joke. And you've really stuck your neck out there for America.
I have, and the old saying goes, you can mess with a man, but you don't mess with his family. When I uncovered that vulnerability, and when I finally came out, they didn't just go after me; they went after my wife and kids, and that's when I said, okay, enough is enough. I took a tremendous risk. I lost my retirement. We lost our health insurance. We lost everything. And that's what they do to whistleblowers. I've given a speech on that. But I did it because that's why For the Love of Freedom is our motto. I did it because I adore this country. I adore this Constitution. It's made the greatest nation in the world. And my children are everything to me. So it was a choice. I saw myself as duty bound. It was something I had to do.
And you know what? I hope people in the military and in the intelligence agencies are seeing this and saying, hey, step up, ladies and gentlemen, in those agencies. They're not all evil. Yet, listen, we have countries wanting to destroy us. We have to have spy organizations.
Yes. Yeah,
period. The end. We have to have it. But they have to be for us, we the people.
Right. And just like Truman originally wanted, we need a good intelligence organization gathering foreign intelligence to protect us against enemies that want to destroy us. We need that, but we don't need one that has covert operational power and authority that Congress doesn't even have control over. That's the part that needs to go, and we need to keep the intelligence collection, including the human, the SIGINT, and everything else. We need to keep that, but we need to get rid of this covert operations that has no boundaries and has gotten into the area of criminal activity and the gross abuse of secrecy.
Prediction time. Is the hammer of justice going to fall this year on some of these players that tried to take the president down in a coup?
I would say yes.
And could it destabilize, destabilize the economy? Could it destabilize our world?
If it was all done at once, it would probably drive the stock market to the floor. And we know that the administration doesn't want to do that because that would ruin the economy. That's why I think that Barr is going to do this slowly and incrementally, because they've got to be mindful of the effect it will have on the economy and the effect it will have not just on the stock market, but on the global economy. So Barr is going to have to take this step by step, carefully, incrementally. And I hope people understand that when he does that and when Trump does it, that's why they're doing it. If they did it all at once, there would be at best a financial recession, and it would deeply hurt our economy and the stock market. So they can't just do this immediately. They've got to take it very, very carefully.
And they're prepping we the people, saying that Clinton's on the #1 crime family, and that he's draining the swamp, Donald Trump says, and that he's going to release all this FISA documents and many other documents that you haven't heard of yet. Yeah, he's prepping the public for, look, hey, boys and girls, it's coming.
Yep. Yep. Those are not light statements. As I mentioned earlier, those statements mean a great deal, and people need to pay attention to them because there's volumes of evidence behind what the president is saying in those statements. Giuliani and others, they know what they're talking about, and they're saying those things intentionally as a heads up to the American people.
And the deep state is freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
ForTheLoveOfFreedom.net, your website. It's free. I'll put the links up in the after the interview section, so you folks in YouTube, just go to the right through, and it has after the interview. It says all links are on usawatchdog.com. Just go to the after the interview section. Here is the book, which is still relevant today. It's a good read. It's a heavy book. It's totally relevant. It's on your website, ForTheLoveOfFreedom.net. There's also a donations page there, which I'm going to put a special link for. If you send it to me, I'll do it. I'll put that up too to keep you going. And Kevin Shipp, a whistleblower, a high clearance CIA officer who at one time protected the CIA director. Kevin Shipp, thank you for your patriotism. Thank you for coming to usawatchdog.com.
Thanks so much for having me on, Greg.